With your host, Andrew Donaldson. This is Heard Tell.
Welcome back to Heard Tell. We continue to talk about global issues with a wide variety of perspective. Another one of our great Young Voices contributors that we absolutely love to have on this program. Let's go to a fellow from Argentina. He is a graduate of George Mason with his master's degree, though, although he has degrees in both agribusiness and economics from down in Argentina. Agustin Forzani, how are you, my friend? Thank you so much for the time today.
Hi, nice to meet you, and thank you for having me in your program.
Thrilled to have you. You wrote about this in National Interest. We've been covering it on this program, that the war in Ukraine, Russia's war of aggression, all the horribleness that's going on, there's a secondary thing that is going to happen with this, because Ukraine, we used to call it the breadbasket of the Soviet Union. It's one of the largest grain producers in the world. Russia produces a whole lot of grain also. A lot of folks focusing on the gas and the oil production and stuff. We've been covering that the food production is going to be a huge issue. You took a look at Argentina, and they have very fertile lands. They have great agricultural capability, but you see that this crisis could be a problem even in a place like Argentina, yeah?
Yeah, because what I tried to do in the article is to show that this problem with the war is, disrupting all the international trade and disrupting prices are going up massively around the world. And within countries, like governments try to solve the problems that these disruptions in prices cause. So Argentina is not a agricultural importer, commodities importer. It's a exporter. And what I try to show is that we could be like a backup, as you could say that we could be a backup for this problem in international trade. Like the problem that you are having in Ukraine and Russia with the war is causing a disruption in the exportation of basically wheat from that area, from the Black Sea, to the poor countries in low-income countries in the Middle East and Africa, because they are really close. These low-income countries are close to the area, and they normally import lots of commodities, and mainly wheat from that area. The war is basically just stop, the exportation of wheat from the Black Sea just was cut completely, almost completely. And I am basically saying Argentina could be supplying these countries, which are gonna suffer a lot because of these high prices. These are basically African and Middle East countries are importing countries. They import agricultural commodities. And I try to say Argentina is also a breadbasket from South America, but we can supply these countries easily. But governments try to see just their population. They don't really care about what's happening outside their borders. Not that much. So they start to at least in Argentina, the government is meddling with agricultural markets. They are intervening, and it's gonna add fire to the problem already. It's gonna be it's gonna. My opinion is that this new intervention that they are adding to the wheat market in Argentina is going to reduce the production of wheat, and it's going to increase prices, obviously.
For folks that don't know that much about Argentina, other than maybe, Juan Perón and that sort of thing, and they haven't paid attention lately, since maybe the Falkland Wars or so, what's the current political environment in Argentina? Obviously, when you start talking about a government that is intervening in their agricultural production, that brings up all sorts of things because we've seen that throughout history. But just give people a little bit of an overview. The current government in Argentina, the current political situation in Argentina. There's a lot of concern about economic dysfunction. There's a lot of concern. There's some political upheaval. Just give people kind of an overview that aren't real familiar with the country.
So yeah, I mean, as you said, in Argentina, I think we are already in a 100-year period of dysfunctional government. Right now, the current government is Peronist, in the same ideology as the late Peron, but yeah, I mean, government normally tries to accommodate to the situation rather than like following the real ideologies of the past. I mean, the Peronism right now is really like different from the historic Peronism that started all I mean, most of the problems that Argentina has, I would say. I don't blame Peronism entirely for the uh, for the like dysfunctional government that we have. Is I mean, I blame all the governments from Peron onward. Um, but yeah, this government is just doing the same thing and even worse things than the governments in the past. Is further intervening, further complicating things, and we actually need like a complete overhaul of the system just to do like to open our markets to start buying and selling from the world. I mean, start decreasing government spending. Government spending right now, to put you in a perspective, government spending right now is 50% of the GDP. So half of the GDP of Argentina is government. Taxes are like in the roof. They are trying to establish a new tax already because of I mean, the war is a new excuse for adding a new tax, as was the pandemic before, and every time you will have a new tax, that a new problem, and a new tax that they will add. What they need to do is to, as I said, open Argentina for trade and decrease, reduce government spending and let the private sector to thrive. And we are gonna change, really change. If you want to change the situation, you have to do that.
For people that don't realize, Argentina is the third largest economy in South America. This is a massive economy. Back in the 20th century, this was one of the richest countries in the Western Hemisphere. But lately, probably because of the issues you've mentioned, they've talked about a massive drop in foreign investment. Inflation is high, like you said, a lot of government spending that comes hand in hand with having so much government. So when it comes to a crisis like this, like the war in Ukraine, where you go, hey, we could be doing a lot of exporting here. Is it just as simple as government overreach and incompetence to why their economy is not in a position to take advantage of this opportunity?
Well, you have lots of things in the middle that it's not that simple. I mean, I guess, because in the article I tried to explain just the problem that you will have with this intervention in the wheat market, but you also have problems in the agricultural industry as well that are, I mean, exacerbating this problem. So the government is trying to, the prices, I mean, inflation is running like 50-60% right now annually. One of the problems is the price of bread. Another problem is the price of meat. Another problem is the price of vegetables. I mean, all the prices are going up. The government is trying to tackle the price of bread with these new subsidies that they are implementing in the wheat market. Um, but what I try to say is that they are gonna cause even more problems in the wheat production in Argentina, and also I mean, I didn't have space in the article, but they they will just create rent seeking in the industry within the milling industry. The mills are gonna just try to get the subsidy instead of producing, and also the subsidy is not gonna help the poor in Argentina, the people that really are suffering the high prices. The subsidy is gonna affect the prices of all the production of things that are produced with flour. Um, so you are gonna be subsidizing, the bread of for rich people in urban areas. You are not subsidizing actually the price of bread for poor people. I mean, poor people in Africa and the Middle East are suffering a lot as well. So, I mean, rich people here we are a middle income country. We are not a low income country. Um, the subsidy is not gonna accomplish the real. I mean, it's not gonna be for just for the people that are suffering the most. It's gonna be for everyone, and I mean that's why um, you have to be aware of keeping intervening in the markets, because you end up with lots of unintended consequences that, I mean, just make things worse.
Yeah, talking to our friend Augustin Forzani. When we come back after the break, we're going to get into a little bit of those details, where these subsidies are coming from, who's paying for them, the government policies in Argentina. Also, a little bit more about why this disparity kind of comes into play, because you have these prices, but you also have this inflation. We're going to break all this down. Augustin Forzani, our friend from Young Voices, continuing right after. Welcome back to Heard Tell. Our friend Agustin Forzani is with us. Put your economic hat on for just a second, my friend. Explain to folks, because we use terms like subsidies and we understand vaguely what it is. But when you're talking about a country like Argentina, and they're going to start trying to control a commodity or a sector like agriculture with subsidies, that means that money's coming from somewhere. And we already talked about it. The government, inflation's already high, taxes are already high, there's economic dysfunction with the government, there's policy dysfunction with the government. Where's the money for those subsidies coming from? And isn't that kind of the larger issue here? Because that's going to cause what you just talked about before the break, all those unintended consequences. Well, the money for those subsidies, when you don't really have the money for those subsidies, isn't that the unintended consequences that's going to be coming down the road?
Yeah, well, that's the main argument that I have in the article, and that's one of the problems that you will have. The money for these subsidies is going to come allegedly. I mean, the government is saying that it's going to raise again taxes on export companies, but these export companies are just a few. They are just like 5 or 6, and they have the ability um, to communicate. I mean, pass through this tax to the farmers. They just reduce the price of grain that they are paying to the farmers, and basically farmers are going to pay for the subsidy, not the export companies. Uh, Obviously, when they reduce the taxes for the export companies, they uh, keep all the all the money for them. But when the government raises the taxes for exporters, they pass along the tax for farmers. So this is gonna, and farmers are gonna have a reduction in their income, and they're gonna have to reduce their demand for their inputs. There's gonna be a reduction in the demand for fertilizers, for technology, and for machines. And this is gonna, obviously, we are 1 month away from the planting season. This is gonna cause a reduction in yields. You can you could offset this reduction in yields planting more wheat, but obviously, and there was a couple of days ago, there was a like a grain the grain exchange board, they just released an, a, an analysis from the market. The survey said that farmers are planning to plant less wheat because of the high prices, because of the prices of fertilizers, of machinery, and because of the reduction in their income produced by these new taxes for exporters. So this is what's going to happen. There's going to be a reduction in the production of wheat from Argentina, and this is going to raise prices even more in the war. You have the problem with the war in Ukraine. Ukraine is not going to be able to export all the wheat that it planted. Russia, maybe it's going to be able to export the wheat because the sanctions on Russia are not for food and agricultural commodities, but I mean, the dysfunction in the international trade is going to be there. The Black Sea, as I said before, is totally, completely, I mean, stopped. So you need more wheat right now, more planting, and one of the countries that could help with this is not going to be helping because of government's interventions. You have Australia and farmers in Australia and farmers in the US that are already planning to plant more wheat because the price of wheat went up and they realized that they have to plant more. I mean, it's just as basic as that. I mean, they don't even know. They might don't know what's happening in Africa, in the Middle East with this disruption in trade, but they just know that the price went up and they want to plant more because of that. It's just the wonderful price mechanism working in the world. So this is the first problem that's going to happen in Argentina, the reduction in production of wheat. But I said before as well that you are going to have rent-seeking problems, and the subsidy is not going to be directed to people that is needing the reduction in the price of bread and all the derivatives of wheat. You will have rent seeking because mills in Argentina, they are going to realize that there is a new subsidy, and they are going to say, hey, I want this new subsidy. I don't want to pay the price of wheat as in the market. They're going to waste time lobbying the government to try to get this subsidy. This subsidy is just for 800,000 tons of wheat, and the consumption in wheat in Argentina is like 5 million tons. So obviously the subsidy is not going to be for every meal in Argentina. So mills are going to try to lobby the government to get the subsidy. This is just a waste of time and resources for getting a subsidy, and they are not going to use that time and resources to reduce costs. And also, even if you accomplish the objective that you have with these subsidies, rich people are going to be able to buy the subsidized bread as well. Not only the people that are suffering the most, low income people. So obviously these things are not even discussed by the government. It's just, you know, political. It's just the political game that they are playing is just focused on, you know, reducing inflation. We are gonna do this new intervention of the market because this is gonna help. Actually, it's not gonna help. I mean, the unintended consequences are gonna cause the problem to get even worse.
Yeah, talking to our friend Agustin Forzani. We talked about the politics. We talked about the policy. You just touched on it, so I really want you to put a human face on this. Talk about the people of Argentina for just a second. This is a very large country, beautiful country. Some of the most jarring landscapes in all the world, all the way down to Tierra del Fuego, to the center of South America. You talked agriculture. Argentina's Cowboys are legendary worldwide. There's a lot of culture here. There's a lot of history here. But in America, we call it gridlock. The political dysfunction and the economic frustrations you've talked about for a long, long time. People are very disenfranchised with the political system. They call it the rift in Argentine. You can say the pretty fancy Spanish version of it, which is a lot better than the way I said it, but they call it the rift. But talk about the people of Argentina for just a second, how they're processing things. I've got to imagine when they see something like this where they can maybe take a step on the world stage besides just the dysfunction, there's got to be a lot of frustration with all this, doesn't there?
Yeah, obviously there is a lot of frustration, but I I think that yeah, I mean, farmers are already frustrated by, I mean, increasing taxes all the time, and the sector that is suffering obviously is uh, uh, frustrated by this new intervention. But other sectors, as I said, even some sectors within the agricultural markets, as mills, are gonna kind of enjoy this new subsidy, and they are gonna have, like, they're gonna be able to get a benefit from this new intervention. So there is a kind of a division within the the agricultural sector in Argentina, and but yeah, in general in Argentina, people are uh, there is an increase in the sentiment in Argentina for like changing the system. People in Argentina are just exhausted of um, uh, these functions in government, and there is a kind of anti-government sentiment growing. Um, but what I believe in the what I think it's the main problem is our institutions and our ideas within our country. Um, People in Argentina are not just, I mean, we are not less productive than other countries because we want to be less productive. Uh, we just have a problems in our rules and institutions, and these rules and institutions cause that we cannot like cooperate each other to produce and to grow and to progress as a country. Um, I mean, lots of people that from Argentina that emigrate to other countries end up being really successful. That's because they are the same people, but they change to another set of institutions and rules, and they end up being more productive in other rules and institutions. So we have to change our like, if you will, formal and informal rules. This is a cultural change, a long process, obviously, but if we can accomplish that, we can grow tremendously, because we have the resources, we have the people in Argentina is really innovative. They are we have good people, we have good human resources, natural resources. We just need a change in our system, in our rules, and we can take off, I am sure.
Yeah, and to your point on that, Argentina, even with all its challenges that we've just laid out, still one of the leading economies in South America. Their GDP per capita is the second highest in South America, but then their GDP drops way down the list. So that's the disparity you were talking about. Our friend Agustin Forzani, thank you so much for explaining this to us. We're going to have you back on to update this. Hopefully we have some better news out of Argentina to talk about, but they're going to be the center of a lot of things. China's doing a lot of investment there. The Biden administration is trying to improve relations. So we'll touch back in with you on these matters in the future.
Yeah, and give me just
yeah, sure. Go ahead.
one short thing. So I guess why this is important for the U.S. why all these interventions and these um, problems that we are having in Argentina, because the IMF in the US the IMF just provided a new loan to Argentina, to the government of Argentina. Obviously, this money is used to give subsidies, to intervene in the market, all of this. And one of the countries that provides more money to the IMF is the US. So some money from taxpayers to the US is going to the IMF, which goes to Argentina to, just do these kind of things. And the IMF is not really constraining the government to, open what we really have to do, to open the market, to reduce government spending. They are just wasting this money, and in the end, is the taxpayers in the US, in Japan, in Europe are paying for all these interventions. So that's why this is important also for the US.
Yeah. Always follow the money, you get to the truth, and unaccountable government is a universal problem, regardless of which government you're talking about. Good points, my friend. Let folks know where they can follow you on your social media and your writing stuff until we get you back on Heard Tell again in the future.
Well, yeah, my Twitter is Agustin Forzani, Agustin Forzani. And my LinkedIn also same name. And you can also find me in my Young Voices webpage. I have all my articles listed there.
Yep, and it's alphabetical, so he's on that top row. You can find him real nice and easy. Great information. We love having the wider perspective on things going on in the world, and then you tied it right back in. The world's a lot smaller than we thought it was, and what does subsidies in Argentina have anything to do with the U.S.? You just laid it out. You go down the hole deep enough, we're paying for it. So great insight, my friend. Thank you so very much for your time today, and we'll have you back soon, buddy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.